Music, only good music. We're Damn Radio.
Damn right. I am Samuel Trapp. This is Damn Radio, as you just heard, and this show is called International Flavor. Very glad to have you. Damn glad to have you, I might even say. If you ever want to go back and listen to my older shows, I was just on the Ike Skelton show a little bit. It was a lot of fun. I was very glad to be here. Just came in a little bit too early, I suppose, trying to get a couple things done, and he chatted with me a little bit. It was very nice, and I appreciate that. And I like Ike, and I like his show, and it was a good dialogue that we had. And you know, I got plenty to talk about my damn self, and there's plenty to go along, but I really like listening to Ike. And if you get a chance on Wednesdays are Long Play Wednesday, where we have a lot of folks that have shows. We have 5 different radio shows on, a great talk here on damnradio.com/live, and the Lake Ozark Real Estate of the Art Studio. And I've got quite a bit of content lined up for tonight to discuss with you. And I wanted to start, about a week ago, I gave a bit of a story on infrastructure and all of the successes of infrastructure in Southeast Asia, the North-South rail projects, India running a port in Iran, new rail lines being put into place by China all over the world, high-speed rail everywhere, the biggest port in Peru funded by Costco from China, lots of stuff like that. So there's, after World War II, there was a lot of growth in America. Why? Because we were building infrastructure like a bunch of madmen, and there was money put into it. And nowadays, we can't get anything done because of political gridlock. You know, I got to make sure my brother or my nephew's company gets a chunk of the money set for this. Biden has to make sure that Burisma funds his son's horrible lifestyle. You know, whatever that happens to be, we can't do infrastructure anymore very well in the United States. And it was kind of brought home to me today, and I'm going to revisit it in a smaller sort of way for the first little bit of the show here, because I think it's important. If you listen to the Ike show and me and my little thing on there, I told a little story about me riding on a train from Moscow to Minsk, and it was a nice train. You know, they had like you would get on an airplane service that they provide food, they come to your table, they bring you tea, they bring you coffee. Stuff like that. You can get a glass of wine if you want it. Same thing you could probably get on an airplane. And I told the story about how I got sat by a drunk Russian, and it was a pretty fun, it was a fun little story, and it was, I didn't create an international incident or nothing, and that was really good. But they have that sort of thing, a 6-hour train ride. I'm not saying we don't in America, but I've ridden on trains in America, and it's not good. Let's say that. It's just not good. We have someone in the studio, but I'm not going to let him talk just yet, and I know he wants to, and I'm going to let him. But I want to share with you, first I'm going to share with you this entire project that Putin just signs off on. Now, whether you think it's because, and like I do, that it's political gridlock in one hand has got to wash the other, or you can't get anything done. If you remember me talking in my diatribe about it in my 2-hour breakdown on a Sunday night a week or two ago, put this in the what was it called, where you had to have the, I'm going to turn him up because he probably remembers, where you had the oil coming from Canada down to Mexico.
Pipeline.
What was it called?
Pipeline.
Keystone Pipeline is what it was called. And so the Keystone Pipeline was all going very well the day Biden took office. He canceled it. Billions lost, hundreds of millions at least, for a project that just got cut off. Why? Because it's politically crap. Other countries wouldn't do that, in my opinion. But here, the political knife in the back is that. And so, you wonder if we can ever get anything off the ground infrastructure-wise again. Meanwhile, we have infrastructure going up all around the world with countries that are working together even though they disagree with each other. India and China working together economically, and they've had the same border war for going on 40 years, I want to say. Might be a little shorter than that, but they've had the same border war going on that in 2021, they killed people on each other's borders, but they're still working together. And so I was very interested when I saw this, Putin signing off on Europe's largest ever high-speed rail project. And it's a short article, so I'm going to share it with you. Mikhail Mishustin has announced plans for a massive high-speed rail network in Russia, set to be the largest in Europe, with more than 4,500 kilometers, 2,800 miles, and use domestic-built trains. Domestic. They're building their own trains. They're not buying them from the West anymore. They don't have to. And at a government meeting, these trains will be able to go 400 kilometers an hour, 250 miles an hour. At a government meeting Tuesday, Prime Minister said the new line will cut travel time between Moscow, St. Petersburg from 4 hours to just over 2. The network will connect Moscow to Minsk, the ride I was just on, that took me 6 hours, maybe 7. It's a nice ride. I mean, it's through some beautiful country. It'll connect Adler with the Black Sea, Yekaterinburg with the Ural Mountains, Ryazan, and other cities. Travel between cities will not only be safe and comfortable, but also not too time-consuming. In the modern world, time is increasingly valuable because of that we are mastering technology for faster travel and are working on a development scheme for high-speed rail infrastructure. And the rest of it I'm not going to read. And so I got to thinking about that, and I was interested in the thing that they're going to become I think it's the second largest in Europe that they will be. They're going to pass up Spain, and so I started doing a little bit of looking, okay, into this high-speed rail, which in the U.S. we don't have very much of, very, very little, okay? The largest high-speed rail project in Europe will be this 4,500-kilometer Russian network, and it will be bigger than Spain's 3,900-kilometer system, which is pretty involved. They're going to use entirely Russian-built trains, getting rid of the dependence on the Siemens Sapson units, which currently max out at 250 kilometers an hour, and their target speed is 400 kilometers an hour, making them faster than France's TGV, which is 320 kilometers an hour. This highlights Moscow's technological independence amid sanctions, by the way. And just like they have in aircraft, just like they have in energy projects, just like they have in weapons, okay? Strategic. Moscow, St. Petersburg, that connection is huge because those are the two most, probably the most consequential cities inside of Russia. And you can get back and forth within 2 hours. That's almost less time that it takes you to get on, to go to the airport, get on a plane, fly a plane, get it, it's going to be quite similar to that. They'll go to Minsk, Adler, those places I already talked about. Putin has already signed off, giving it a green light. And, the difference is these are government projects. I don't want to say that I'm pro-government and anti-capitalism or private companies, but we spend all our time deciding which private company is going to win and get the contract and be able to do it between states. Plus, as I pointed out before, 80% of the funding for infrastructure, at least, if not more, gets delegated to a particular state. So when you get money for infrastructure in Texas, you might not necessarily get it in Colorado or in New Mexico? And then how do you get those three to work together to build some sort of infrastructure that is useful for the entire America? This is not the America of the times when we put together the highway systems, the interstate system, which was all, federal. Now they're maintained locally with federal money. And, that project can't get off the ground. This Interstate 27 from Texas, Colorado, that thing's a mess, as we talked about before. So the first stage of this one that Putin is going on is Moscow, St. Petersburg, okay? It's a global context. Russia's going to leap ahead of Europe, and they still trail China. But guess how many kilometers China has worldwide now? 64,000. They are so far ahead of the rest of us, it's not even funny. And they have in operation already, by the way, and they hold the record of trains like the Shanghai Maglev train goes 460 kilometers an hour. That's about 280, I think. Don't quote me on that. I can't add. But Russia's project is going to be geopolitically significant. Europe talks Green Deal, endless regulation. Russia's building stuff. India's building stuff. China's building stuff. And so this falls right in line with the eastward pivot. Now, I've brought this up, and I brought somebody into the studio who knows a little bit about rail projects. When we connected, and your microphone is now on, and when we connect, say something.
Check.
Ah, there he is. And this is my esteemed brother and colleague, Matthew Von Trapp. And Matthew Von Trapp used to work on rail in some very large projects. He was, what should we call it, a near miss on the California rail?
Yeah,
Why don't you tell us your tale about, and see if you heard my commentary on what I was saying. Why don't you give us a little perspective on your point of view? Because I wanted you here because I know you know more than I do. I had to read what I got. What do you got?
Well, I think generally, when you started off about, where the state of infrastructure in the United States, we have to look at, first of all, is it fit for purpose? Like we have something like 2.5% of our GDP that we spend on infrastructure. And the question is it sufficient? Does it match what we really need? Right? And when you look at where we rank in the world, it's really not even about the rankings, although we don't shine very far in those rankings either. And so you have a lot of investments that were made under Biden, but those dollar investments don't translate out into, like, if we would normally build a massive bridge and rail project that was crossing one of the rivers, and it was $1 billion or something. During the Biden years, that would have been $2 or $3 billion because of all of the money that went to friends and family. All of the inflation, those other things that really diluted project cash. So when you're talking about $69 billion in construction funds, the House appropriations money is a lot higher than that, and then you actually get some. It was like $118 billion, if I remember correctly. I'd have to look it up.
You mean for the rail project?
Well, the rail project received $4 billion of that, right? And
$4 billion of 118.
$4 billion of that 118, there was a bunch of stuff for studies and some of these other things in there. And what you can read into that was that, hey, my friend has a little, engineering company, and I want a
little study company,
and we need a study from them. And you end up with like an 18-page document that looks like it was written by a high schooler for the money. But anyway, long and short of it is that California high-speed rail got $4 billion. And everybody's really excited. They get $4 billion. They're supposed to go do something. So they contacted me. It was a search agency out of the UK that found my resume. I'm living in Chicago. The guy calls and he's like, hey, I got this project, and he's telling me about the project. And he goes, the one problem is you may not want to go. It's like where a lot of Americans don't want to go. And I'm thinking, I've already lived in the Middle East. Like, where are we talking? Because the only place I've refused is Mexico. I was hired for an airport in Mexico, and I didn't go. I shouldn't say I was hired. I was offered a position there.
Yeah.
So I'm like, where can this be? And he goes, it's California.
L.A. I'm not going.
And I said, you know what?
I like California. I hate the politics, but I like California.
So, but just as a little background, I've done about 105 billion worth of construction projects. In that, I'm on the site. That's the value of the project. I'm doing usually some kind of technical work that has to do with the quality of the site and, you know, the data and all of those things that need to be transferred and, you know, for an operator. When you think about it, you've got design, and then you build, and then you operate. And the guys who operate need to know that the people who designed it and built it, they didn't have all that information, and they also need to be able to assure, especially in a rail project, you've got rail, airports, and hospitals that are similar that require certification. So when they're getting certified, like, for example, in a hospital, like, you can't have cloth couches sitting around that collect bacteria and
dust
and
like that,
mold and all that. For an airport, like, you've got security issues, you've got safety issues, etc. And for rail, you've got a combination of different things, but the main thing about the rail is the safety case. And what that is to show that you can operate the railway safely. All the engineers and operators and everybody gets together and they say, hey, a train traveling at X speed will, when it passes this, you know, let's say it's a railroad crossing of some kind, it will be able to do so safely because the engineers have put the crossing gates down. They'll, when it's approaching, it'll be so many seconds before the train gets there at such and such speed, and it'll lock out. Or if you're on a metro, it'll lock out the people so there's no way they can access the tracks. That kind of stuff. You have to demonstrate that the rail is safe, and that's the safety case. There's a lot of things that go into the safety case. And just as an example, if you are in a tunnel and let's say you're underground, you have to be able to safely get out of the rail car if it's on fire within a specific time period. You have to be able to evacuate the tunnel via a nearby exit. And you're talking about quantity of people and speed and all of the safety measures to be able to, you know, get out to fresh air. And there's certain things that buy you time, right? Like air evacuation systems and fire suppression systems and, you know, et cetera, lighted pathways and all of that stuff. Well, California, and by the way, I'm going to do a deep dive and then I'll kind of come back to the higher level here, but California high-speed rail, I get this call. I jump on a set of interviews. They give me the lowdown. I jump on a set of interviews, and the people they have on the job are these experienced, like senior engineers, right? That they were on a bridge project in Michigan. And, you know, they've done $1 billion worth of work. And I'm coming in there. And by the way, not to belittle them, but no one that I interviewed with, and I want to tell you, I interviewed with over 10 people. And these are high-level people. Not a one of them had any rail experience. And by this point, I'd done rail projects in several countries. And I'm coming in here and I'm like, what is going on? So I'm explaining to them. And these are the construction guys. So I'm getting nervous.
These are the big money guys.
These are the big money guys.
Yeah.
So I'm explaining to them that this is 3 times faster than a roller coaster. And the first thing that needs to be built, the design of everything, has to be the safety systems, not the track, not the grades. Because when you think about it, if you have some construction company that comes in and builds a roller coaster, and then they come to a safety company and they're like, okay, can you certify this for us? The safety company is going to go, well, the way you built that curve, like, people are going to fly out of the roller coaster, right? Because of the way the cars are designed. So you have to start with safety. You have to be able to say, here's the speeds, here's the grade of the curves, like 2-3%. Here's the G forces required in this at this angle. Here's the the grading, all of that stuff you have to look at, right? And so when I was discussing this with them and explaining to them that, and I asked them, well, who's doing the safety case? And most of them didn't know what the safety case was. Right? It's like building a hospital and not knowing that you have to actually be certified to open a hospital, right?
Yeah.
Or an airport. Like, oh, I didn't know the FAA had a hand in this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking to myself, like, what is the focus? So I began to ask them over time, like, what are we focused on here? And they're like, well, we've, done these grades, et cetera, and we've, we're almost done with this viaduct, and, these kind of things. And for the most part, they're running through flat terrain, so they're going to be okay, but we don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know that. They don't have a hazard log with a series of lists of things that they are going through from a safety perspective. Instead, these are a bunch of construction guys. Yeah, this looks good. It's nice and flat. Right? And not a single line of track. Right? And while you were getting ready, I pulled up some of the history because I was trying to remember how far back it went. I did the research before I ever went and joined. So what's funny is I got hired by the high-speed rail. First time, I got hired 3 times in a year and a half.
For high-speed rail.
For the high-speed rail in California. The first time was to be their improvement guy, internal processes.
Mm-hmm.
So I jump in there and I interview with these people. And one of the primary objectives, they had this listed as a primary objective. And I don't think it's a bad thing, but I think it just shows some of the misdirection that was going on. So one of their primary objectives was to hire locals. Hey, applaud, right? Yeah, The challenge is that they had a whole outreach group that would register businesses and, spending millions training these people rather than just going and picking people like, hey, you've got the skills, come in here and do this. Mm-hmm. They're like training people who've never done this sort of thing before. And a lot of small businesses and a lot of friends of, DEI and all this stuff.
Right.
So you end up with this entire goat rope of a, organization that's going through this. And I went through and showed them, hey, here's how you do stuff. Here's the stations need to be prepared for retail food and beverage, what we call RF&B. There's a big deal of how this is supposed to be set forth, and there were some problems with the stations and things that they were putting together. That was the first time. When it came to, and I signed my offer letter, everything, after we went through some negotiations. About 3 weeks in, waiting for stuff to happen, get things going. I hadn't actually started yet. There was a whole paperwork trail that now had to go up to the CEO to be signed. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking to myself, well, there's a whole lot of bureaucracy here. in the meantime, this drags on for a month.
Mm-hmm.
And they come back and they're like, hey, we're going to find another position for you. And this is the
Jim Bob, get your spot, Jim Bob.
Yeah, they had a friend. They had a friend who came in after they'd already offered me the position, who had been there before, but was working at a different company and didn't like the fact that he actually had to work at the high-speed rail. He could actually just sit around and do nothing. And he had no track record of doing. He had already been in that position, had no delivered track record of actually saving money or doing anything, right? And the whole position was to save money and time for the operations of the rail. So, but he had no experience, had delivered no value, but he was a friend of them. So they were like, hey, we're going to get him back in here. So I'm like, okay, round two. What was round two? Round two was some... So by the way, the reason I'm interviewing with like 10 or 12 people or whatever it was, is that I had to go through 3 rounds of interviews every job. Right? And they were with people, all these experienced people. So, and again, I'm the only one with experience, so it's getting odd. So I can't remember what the second position was. It was something, it was still up by Sacramento. Anyway, the second position was something in operations or something. I can't remember. And that one fell through. No explanation. Right? So they're like, hey, you know, or no, I think they said it was like they couldn't free up the position or something. There was a position was approved but not funded or some weird thing like that. So then, but I'm like, you hired me for it. I signed the papers. We got that far for the job offer. Like they offered me the job. The third one was, and again, each of these are like 6 months apart. So this is like wasting some serious time, right? So the third one was to be a senior advisor to all of the construction executives. They had different area leads. And so they're like, hey, this guy's got, you know, he can come in and be a senior advisor. And I was actually happy with that because I thought I'm going to have an impact on the guys that are running these areas. And again, I signed the paperwork. Like the job offer was done. So I'm waiting around for a week, right? Thinking third time's a charm. And, but I came to realize that the system in California has no boundaries of how absurd things can go, really. And so I find out that the guy who was putting my paperwork forward, he was preparing for the new CEO to come in. And this is, I want to say August of 23, something like that. Maybe it was 24 even. I can't remember. The new CEO was coming in.
I think it was 23, but
yeah,
I don't remember.
Yeah, it's like, anyway, so he's like, hey, we got this new CEO and he's just coming in, we're replacing the old one, you know, trying to get a fresh start on things. And he wanted a freeze on hiring.
He has his own senior advisors.
And at that point, I was like, this is never going to happen. It's not going to happen. So I started looking at other infrastructure projects, and I got familiar with some of the stuff out east and some different stuff. The only people that had experience on those rail projects, they were all foreigners. We had a bunch of British people that were there. And, you know, things of that nature where they're There weren't any Americans because we don't have the people. Like when I got back from Qatar, right, and I was looking for a job, quote unquote, there's nothing here. My first job was in Canada on a $1 billion light rail program in Ottawa. And again, the Canadians didn't have any experience, so they were looking for guys. So when I go back to like having a program fit for purpose, the big issue is even when we have a program, we don't have any of the experience. So we're bringing in people from the UK and now India, right?
Yeah.
So, but check out this timeline. This may be something that might interest your listeners because I had to look it up again because it was so absurd when I heard it before. Key timeline of the California high-speed rail, 1975 to 1983. We're now 50 years into this, right? Governor Jerry Brown signs a study. Again, a study. They could do a study. 1982, the California legislature authorized $2 billion for a bullet train, and they told everybody it's going to be a bullet train. It's only $2 billion, right? And that was, again, signed into law in October of 1982. 81. So
is that money still sitting there? Because there's no bullet train.
Oh no, no. And by the way, as of today, right now, there's still no track on the ground. Right.
I heard not long ago that they canceled it or something.
The government, so under Trump, the first thing he did is new transportation secretary went out there, had a big meeting in one of the stations, their version of Union Station. And he says, and he's got these protesters. They don't even know why they're protesting. And he goes, we've given you $16 billion. Is it 16 billion? Maybe it was like 20 billion in 16 years. And he goes, you've had your chance. You don't even have a track laid anywhere. And they kept shrinking the project. So it was supposed to go.
It was supposed to go from
like Los Angeles
to
like San Diego originally up. And then they shortened it to Los Angeles all the way up to Sacramento.
Right.
And then they wanted it to zip over first into like some of the farming areas.
But now it's only to Bakersfield, isn't it?
Yeah, so now it's basically a train to nowhere. So it's a high speed, like a very
segment.
Short, segment, right?
30 miles or something.
Yeah, and it's like, I'm going to get on here and I'm going to go to the...
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
I'm going to the mall.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
I'm going to go from Jeff City all the way over to Osage Beach.
That's right.
On a high-speed rail.
That's right.
So anyway, long and short of it is...
How much money?
They said, when I was there, they said, hey, this thing's going to be a total of $120 billion. That they still needed more funding for $120 billion.
Right.
And I said, that's impossible. Right? Like, where's that money going? Like, if you look at the cost, and I can't remember what we you can break it down, but I was like, and I've been on a lot of railways, and it's like I was on the $57 billion railway in Qatar, and
that was a big one.
That one set the world record: 22 tunnel boring machines that all had to be built and shipped. Right, It included light rail, the metro, right. It had 36 stations to start, 72 total or some crazy number like that. But it was 9 metro lines, like a red line, blue line, green line, that kind of thing.
Right.
And that was $57 billion, right?
For all of that.
All of it. But these guys are saying that after something like $40 billion that they'd already spent, now they needed another 120, 130. I'm like, this is impossible.
Well, you got to cover everybody's nephew.
And and they still haven't gotten anything done. So as of September 17th, They're going from Merced to Bakersfield.
How far is that, miles?
119 miles. Oh, they've extended it. It was 119 miles. They were going like, that's what I was saying. It was only 119 miles before. Now it's 171. So like, yay, we're going to go bigger.
Yeah, we're
and
bigger.
then.
That doesn't even get you to Monterey, does it?
No. And then they said the costs are now estimated. They've lowered the cost, and they say it's now 88 to 128. So they left the upper limit there.
Oh, they'll still get the 128. I mean,
they said it's, while they're doing this, they're saying it's preserved thousands of acres of land. How does it?
You preserved it because there's not a track on it.
Yeah. How does a railway preserve land? I just want to know that. It says it's contributed to 21.8 billion in economic output.
Yeah, economic output to people who aren't qualified to get money for something that isn't finished or isn't even remotely started.
Yeah. Now, when you look at these public-private partnerships that you referred to earlier, like Brightline in Florida,
right?
That offers hope because these guys came in and they said,
but it was only Florida, wasn't it?
It was only Florida, but they've got the track now that they're going to be laying out from L.A. to Las Vegas.
So they're going to connect. Yeah, but Las Vegas, it's only 100 miles inside of Nevada.
Here's what they're doing, because that will actually do something. That'll actually get used.
Right.
And when you're on a high-speed train like that.
Yeah.
So they'll come in and they'll say, hey, look, we'll spend $5 billion. It's a bunch of people that invested in the first one. Mm-hmm. We'll have people invest in this. It's private. We're doing a service for the public, so the government kicks in some cash too. And then they come in, they use existing right-of-ways, so they don't have to reinvent the wheel.
They just got to upgrade the systems.
They got to upgrade it, and well, when I say existing right-of-ways, they're doing something innovative. They're using the highway system. So they're just sticking this thing right down the center of it, right? And so it's like
like in the median strip.
In the median or off to the side or right, they've got different areas they'll be at,
Wow.
So it's a totally different, and then we made a lot of comments so they made some of these announcements while I was going through that process. I was like, if I was California, I would just subcontract it to the Brightline. Hey, look, it's $5 billion from L.A. to Las Vegas. So give them another $5 billion. Have them go up to Sacramento.
Right.
Give them another $5 billion. Have them go up. Right. Whatever it is that the length, all the Here right. You go. It's already cleared. They said here on the right, because their big thing is we've environmentally cleared all this track laying, and this is what's taking the biggest amount of time. You have to make sure the little shrews have a home to go to, and they don't want them to go under the track or whatever. So they've got 494 miles of area cleared for it, environmentally cleared, saying you've got an environmental certificate. We took it all through the courts, and it's fine. So, and they've got 50 miles that are under active work right now.
Wow.
And here we are in 2025. And
50 years.
And 50 years and 50 miles of track. So, I mean, there's no track. It's just track work.
50 miles of cleared space to put some track. I mean, geez, come on. You can't be totally negative here.
Yeah. So
they're making progress. This is forward motion.
So the good news is that it made the business case for Brightline a lot stronger. Now, I'm one of those people, like you said, we politicize it too much. I'm one of those people that think we absolutely need the rail system, the rail network in America, that it'll bring different commerce.
But other countries are doing them, not just for passengers, they're doing them for high-speed cargo and shipping trains. They're building a project between Russia and India that's a vacuum train system underground.
Oh, that's the Hyperloop.
It's unbelievable what they are doing, and we don't even talk about this stuff. And our countries, U.S. and Mexico, let's make something to Canada. Let's do that'd take us 200 years and not 50 to get something done. These guys are doing it in 8, and they have actual stuff going out. That's what I've been railing about on this program for a bit. China goes into Africa and builds between 4 countries a high-speed rail system. China.
Oh yeah, well their speed to market is incredible. Like I watched their system go from nothing to thousands of miles of line in just a matter of a few years.
They are 15 times bigger than anybody else. They have 67,000 kilometers of line, 48 of it in China. Yep. And that's over the last 15 years. That didn't even exist before 2010.
Well, I lived in Norway for a couple of years, and I fell in love with the rail network there because you could go anywhere. It was comfortable.
That's Russia.
It was nice, comfortable. I mean, modern.
Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and Kyrgyzstan have great train systems.
Oh yeah,
and they're great. They're fantastic.
And the thing is if you want to go from somewhere now, the U.S. the High Speed Rail Association for the U.S. right, and it has a system map, right, and they've developed this system map, and the one they keep touting as the one that's most likely is. And by the way...
Well, I read what you told me to read.
What'd you think?
Well, I went and I checked out this national vision from the High Speed Rail Association.
That one?
Oh, well, I didn't see that map. I did the reading.
Oh, so this one, that map is what they came up with.
Wow. So in the reading part, it says the High Speed Rail proposing 17,000 miles, which is 27,000 kilometers, which would make us number 2 in the world, because right now Russia, if they do this project, which they will, they're going to be number 2 in the world. China's so far ahead. China's still got 4 times this number of 17,000, right? Mm-hmm. Or 3 times, it looks like. And 4-phase national high-speed rail, the big goal vision to connect regions and serve major city pairs, Chicago, New York, New York, D.C., stuff like that. And the current reality is operational HSR high-speed rail is very minimal. Amtrak Acela in the Northeast corridor has short sections where trains can get up to 160 miles an hour.
Yeah, but those Acela trains right now, it says can get up to.
But they don't.
They're limited to 55 miles per hour by other trains that are on those tracks. So here you are.
There is no high
you're driving your Corvette or your Lamborghini in traffic is what that comes down to.
Yeah, it does.
So, but the interesting thing about this, so they've got if you look at how they've done the high-speed rail plans, the one that I liked was Chicago to St. Louis. I love both cities.
Yeah, I saw that too. That's
right. But they also
need to be linked.
That was phase 1. Was some of the ones that are in green are phase 1. Phase 2 was St. Louis to Kansas City.
And then you can go Kansas City all the way down to Dallas.
Yep, and you can do Kansas City to Denver, Denver to Salt Lake on, right? So they have a great plan, and these ones in gray. And if you guys want to, out there that are listeners, want to go to, it's ushsr.com. It's ushighspeedrail.com. So it's ushsr.com.
And they talked about that Brightline project. I was reading about that in the Vegas to Southern California. That's a good route because, that highway in between, I've driven that highway 10, 15 times. And it's a good drive.
Yeah.
But it's forever, and there's a lot of traffic out there because people take the weekends and they head to Vegas, know, and it's high-speed rail would be.
Imagine doing that at 220 miles an hour. Now,
I don't like to fly it. Flying it, that's kind of crap too because those 2 airports are, I don't really like that.
You have to look at this as an overall package. So Elon Musk is building the starships, right?
Yeah.
He plans on putting 1,000 starship bases around the world. So you'll be able to go from New York to Sydney in about an hour, right? You'll be able to go New York to Sacramento in about a half an hour. And that's launch time and, just travel time in there.
That's everything.
That's everything. So you want to go to Sacramento?
How many people?
I'm not sure. I think they can fit several hundred in those, right?
So like the size of an airplane.
Yeah, you're just sitting vertically, right?
Yeah.
They would probably have to have, you sit horizontally and then they strap you in and you get.
See, I've heard about that. That's a challenge for me. I'm not sure I'd be the one to test drive that.
Oh yeah, I'd wait a couple years in for like version 4.
That's right.
But the interesting thing about all of this is that I see it as part of an overall. So think about this: we want flying cars, we want self-driving cars,
Yeah.
we want the tunnel boring machines to do stuff. We want these rockets, right? And the high-speed rail is a part of that, right? Now, the narrative that people are putting out right now is, oh, we're going to have AI, it's going to take everybody's jobs, and we won't need any of this stuff because nobody will need to work.
Yeah.
Oh, so we don't need any infrastructure in the future. Why don't we just start deactivating some of the roads and stuff now? Right.
Well, right. And if you don't need it, I mean, if you're not working, wouldn't you have more time to use the travel portion to go see something? Or are you just going to sit in your house and play video games? And what was that you were saying the other day? Watch cat videos.
Watch cat videos.
I'm going to sit in there and watch cat videos. And
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day,
I like a good cat video, but
yeah, we're either going to do something about our future or not. Now,
but that's been my argument, my entire program, that 2-hour deep dive I did into what the East is doing compared to what we are doing, is that the infrastructure projects are the critical mass thing that we need to get to, because that's what the future sits upon.
Yeah.
In America, after the war, building up infrastructure, the highway systems and the roads. They had problems in the 70s because of the ICC and trucking and all that other crap that created its own separate problems with interstate commerce and stuff like that. But now we're talking global, nationalism, but global. We have to do a couple of things. One I always talk about, it's learn how to get along with others in the world. And we don't.
We don't get along with ourselves.
I know, it's nonsense. And everything is a fight everywhere around the world. That's number one.
We've got people gearing up for Thanksgiving again, saying it's okay.
You can't go. And Matt, you can't come to the house for Thanksgiving.
Now there's people on the right calling for that.
I know.
That's the last thing we need, is for the right to go, oh yeah, we're going to do exactly what the left did.
Yep. We're doing it already.
And
let's go arrest everybody that pissed us off from the prior administration. Don't get me started on that. I don't agree with it.
Well, as far as
but that's not the topic.
As far as
anyway.
Infrastructure goes, though,
well, but
and
they
why
do the same
relates,
thing. They shut down whatever the prior administration was doing.
Yeah, and what I was in favor of is, I think California deserved to have the $4 billion taken away. Hands down, they deserve to have it taken away. Right? But that $4 billion should have been invested in the Chicago to St. Louis line.
Give it to somebody
with
else.
Brightline or whatever. Here's
to
a
prove
contract
that somebody can do it.
I think that would have been more of, by the way, if you're trying to be political only, that would have been a slap in the face of the people in California. Like, hey, we took that $4 billion, and in the space of Donald Trump's
first 6 months,
right? Here's what we got. We
and
cleared
they've already
path.
got 10 miles of trail lane.
I think the challenge is that we don't want that in a blue state like Illinois. So why not put it in
Indiana?
Run
it right next by
St. Louis to Kansas City.
Oh, that would work
right?
too.
Or you can select from a number of different places. Like Texas, right? Texas.
Yeah, but Matt, isn't it? My argument a couple of weeks ago, and you didn't hear the show, but my argument is that what the problem is that we have no.
Is this the show you did about the infrastructure and
Well, I
because I heard that
they
show.
might be combined. I don't remember.
Heard that show.
But they had a the problem is what we do not have. We don't even have a port authority that is a port authority for
the entire country.
True. That is trying to organize that is trying to organize transportation in between the other. My argument was, if we have Donald Trump on Shark Tank and we have Elon Musk come in, who's this global performer, and go, listen, here's my Shark Tank idea, Donald Trump. I'm going to tell you, here's the ports. We need a major port in San Francisco, Seattle, L.A., Houston, all these ports that already are, but they need massive upgrades, number one. We need deeper water, number two. We need higher volume, number three. And we need high-speed rail to connect between them all for both cargo containers and people. We need to be able to do this. And then the air, air is okay. Air's great. I don't have any problem with air, but, it's getting crowded up there. And if you listen to Gabby's always carrying on about how untrained and how dangerous it's getting up there. And I assume that's, that he knows far more than I do. But we can't come together to create some sort of infrastructure thing. Meanwhile, China has 67,000 kilometers of high-speed rail, and their people are going places. This is another point that I wanted to tell you about that I saw this, a couple of days ago, and it also got me thinking about this same line. Because a couple of days ago, I was just flipping through YouTube, and there's this video that I came upon that says the countries with the most engineers, and it's by year, right? And so you can stop at any time you want. And if you start with this, the countries with the most engineers in the world, we're starting in 1990. Okay, and in that span, the U.S. had 225,000 engineers. Japan, the closest behind them, had 127,000. Russia had 120,000. Then you have a couple other players: Germany, South Korea, UK, France, all the standard ones. Ukraine, because they were still under Russia at that time, Ukraine had 75,000. Okay. And way down at the bottom, you have, China's number 9, Iran is number 10, and then you get into Pakistan, Italy, India is number 13. Well, as this video goes along, here we are in 2000. Let's get to 2000. And the USA still has 231. No movement, no change, no education differences, no nothing. We still have 231,000 engineers in the U.S. Meanwhile, other people are catching up. China's now number 2 at 145. Where'd Russia go? Russia dropped some. Ukraine's got 97, and then you keep on going. Well, Russia, in that 10-year period, Russia went to number 1. Russia doubled their engineers in the same 10-year period in the 90s. And they were going through crap like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, it was
a horror story for them. U.S. still 231,000 engineers. Russia, now the most in the world, 278,000. And China coming up. Japan slipping. India is now number 5, and Iran is number 6. So I'm only doing the 10-year thing, right? And if you go up to 2010, which is the next section, Russia now has 420,000 engineers. Guess how many the U.S. has? Same amount it had before. More. They went up another 10. Now they're at 240, right? And Iran is number 3. China's number 4. India. This is a complete swap in engineering, right? And so your comment about people being hired that have no experience, well, they're all brother-in-laws to somebody who's in a position somewhere. So yeah, you got to hire them from somewhere else because they don't exist in the U.S.
And remember, a population is climbing in America, so this represents
ours is too. But China and Iran are now having serious education improvements all the way across the board.
That's what I mean. our population is increasing, so these numbers actually represent a decrease.
A decrease for us,
right?
by percentage-wise, yes. And then if you go from 2010 to 2020, let's go to 5 years ago. Here we are in it's still 2019. Let's get to 2020. Russia is still number one with 461,000. They have more than, almost doubled. The U.S. has gone up another 10, but, that's still a lesser percentage of what we've got.
We're now third.
We're now 4 because it goes Russia, China,
fourth,
India, U.S., and then Iran. Okay? Because Iranians, this, having worked in the Middle East, Iranians, there's a butt ton of engineering going on there. And these people are highly educated. The UK, nothing. All these other ones, nothing. Let's go to what it is today. Very end. Here we go. Oh, crap. I went too far. We'll go to where we are now. China, in the last 5 years, has, son of a nutcracker, has far surpassed. They are at 579,000 engineers. Okay. Russia's still at 435. India's number 3. The U.S. has gone up about 40,000. But and they're number 4, and Iran's still number 5. But where do we get the people to do this? Is it
you got to have the demand? You got to have the demand.
Yeah, do we not have it?
Well, here's where I have hope. Right when you were talking,
am I too depressed over this? Is that
no? So when I came back from Qatar in 2017, there were no jobs for me, right? So I had to go to Canada to begin with. But let's talk about some of the good stuff that Trump has done, because I have hope, but I need to see some stuff like digging in the dirt. Now, I want to do a caveat here because Trump has listed about 13 trillion in projects. Some of these companies...
And he really has? This is like...
Yeah, and I've got a list of company by company and who's doing the infrastructure, etc. Right?
Yeah.
Now, I gotta caveat this because some of these...
Are pipe dreams?
Well, yes. And I'm going to give one example. Kraft Heinz.
Yeah.
Right? I just was recently working for Kraft Heinz. And they were building a big facility out west. Right, it's supposed to be an automated, kind of like an Amazon facility for things. And,
Amazon facility for mayonnaise? What?
Yeah, for mayonnaise and ketchup and stuff, where it's just automatic, the little robots running around doing stuff.
Creating mayonnaise.
That was cool. They had a big sign on it. And then one day I drive by there. And by the way, it's like an hour and a half from downtown. So you have to have a reason to go out there. So I go by there. And I'm sorry to laugh at these guys, but the sign's down, right?
Sign's gone. No more Kraft Heinz.
And there was no, all the construction equipment was gone. It was just like this partially finished shell. So I come back and I ask one of our leaders, hey, what happened? She gets kind of this sheepish kind of grin. I don't know. I'll check it out. Right? And I said, look, we're running out of money, aren't we? Because I was working, for Kraft Heinz. And, oh, no. I'm like,
if the construction crews are gone, you got no money.
And the answer I got was kind of like the Grinch. Well, there's a light out on this tree, and I'm going to take it back to my shop. And what she said was so funny. She said, well, the floor cracked. She had no idea that I had extensive construction experience and that I'd been around these jobs.
The floor cracked.
There was a crack in the floor.
All floors crack.
A crack, across this place. So anyway, the caveat here is that Kraft, and by the way, the reason I know for a fact that Kraft Heinz won't be doing those manufacturing facility upgrades is because Kraft and Heinz are splitting. Heinz will be its own company again, and Kraft will be its own company again. So we know that Kraft Heinz isn't doing those projects. Anyway, I digress because there are major investments. The UAE, they're going to do some various technology aerospace, etc. And you have to remember, these total investments are over different durations. So 1.4 trillion is what they're going to do over 10 years.
Yeah.
Right. Qatar's doing 1.2 trillion, Japan 1 trillion, Apple 600 billion, Saudi 600 billion.
Are any of them infrastructure related, or are these just private? Here's my new business.
Multiple are AI infrastructure, which is a big one.
Yeah.
Right. U.S. energy. So if I were to break this down by actual infrastructure, and I'm going to change something here. What you get when you filter it is that you've got about, I'd say 40 to 60% of the projects that are listed in there that are like actual infrastructure. The rest are like, I'm going to do my factory upgrades. And in the one case, it was about developing, electric vehicles a little bit further or something. So it's kind of stuff that you get the impression there were a bunch of people that like, hey, I want to look good, So I've already got this roadmap of where I want to go. So I want to, I'm excited about the fact that Trump is focused on investments. What I want to make sure we do is break it down, and the total here across these 25, 500 is really looking at right at about $1 trillion of that in investment. Maybe more, depending on whether you count the AI data centers as part of the infrastructure. Now, it's part of the digital infrastructure. Now, one good example of something that's happening, you got 3 Mile Island that Microsoft purchased the operating rights to 3 Mile Island. Mm-hmm. Right? So here's a company that says, I need all the nuclear output of 3 Mile Island for my AI data centers forever. So I'm going to go ahead and pay to stand up this nuclear power plant and get things going. So I do have hope for us. To your point, when we're talking about rail and these other things, none of this is going to that. Right? There's none here. Now, there are grid expansions, transmission lines, nuclear reactors, again, more AI. They've reiterated a couple of different times grid infrastructure, construction of. There is a shipyard, right? Which
really?
is
Where's that one?
In Philly, right? It's the Hanwha shipyard, right? Oh. But that's part of the naval upgrades. Like we need to do stuff for the Navy. Because we don't have, like right now, the Navy can't build enough ships.
Yeah, I know.
Like we can't churn out a ship. So the bigger issue here is that, are these what we really need? And it goes back to what I first said when I came on the show is, what do we need for the future? Is our infrastructure fit for purpose? And now with this piece, it's like, are we planning the right things and putting the money where it needs to go? Because the problem is that our competitors, they are. And ours is kind of an incoherent, fractionalized, or I would say fractured,
Total.
right? So we've got this U.S. High-Speed Rail Association that's like, look at my map.
Yeah, I got a map. Yeah, I got a map. Somebody give me some money. And that's been going on for a while. High-speed rail, 50 years. Texas, what was that one? Houston to Dallas has had one planned since the 90s when I was in law school in Texas. Well, they were talking about it, and it was really 20 years before that, and they haven't laid a track.
Well, think about this. The other reason why this is important is, remember how so things didn't used to be this way. In Illinois, where I'm from, we used to have 60 different rail lines that were public transportation. And then something happened. the oil companies bought them up and shut them down. Now, this may sound like a liberal thing. Oh, these big corporations and big oil.
Yeah, but they did it for you to buy to drive.
They want you to drive. And I'm really happy that we got the 57 Chevys and all that stuff out there. And America started driving, and we ended up with these little Stuckies on the side of the road, right?
Man, I wish they were still around.
There's like
I want
one
a
left
log
somewhere.
roll.
There's
I
one
want
left,
the
and I
log
found
roll.
it. But I think one of the interesting things about all that is that we've got to, I think, look at what the future is going to require and really ask ourselves that question. And we're going to have to get beyond all the partisanship and start asking the relevant questions. Really, if I was a globalist, I'd keep the Americans just arguing with each other while life went on. Like, think under the Obama administration, our economy slowed to like 1.2, 1.1 growth. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, places like Denmark were accelerating to 5% growth. Mm-hmm. China, 8%. So if
Russia was almost 5 last year.
Yeah, if you're walking along at 4 miles an hour, brisk pace, and
it feels good, doesn't it?
Feels good. And I'm scooting along, munching on some Twinkies, checking out the weather, sitting at a park bench, and then getting up and walking. I'm doing like 1 mile an hour. It doesn't take long. Even if I start out 100 miles ahead of you, it doesn't take long for you to like zip past me. Mm-hmm. Right? So maybe one final comment on this, because it also has to do with the military. We have to remember that the Interstate Highway Program was built, in essence, as a defense project, because we have to be able to ship stuff here and there and everywhere and have our cities connected so that we can get stuff from point A to point B if and when there's a defense situation. We were concerned back in those days that I need to get something from one coast to the other, troops and stuff, because we were like actually thinking we could be invaded. Mm-hmm. And Americans today, that's not even on their mind, but it should be.
Right.
Right?
It's not on the radar.
So, having said that, I think there's a lot of room for improvement. I agree with you. I see Trump moving in the right direction. I want to see more focus, and I want to see some more planning. And eventually, like really soon, we need to get beyond the partisan side of this.
See, JR always, I didn't mean to rat him out. Somebody I know always says that I'm far too pessimistic, and you know what? In general,
I'm on the other side. I'm completely optimistic.
Well, so's JR, and I know you are too. And I don't mean anything bad about it at all. I hope you're right and I'm wrong. I'm all fine with that. I think so. But when you hear stories like I have told and I know are true, and I know you know they're true, that the Keystone Pipeline is a project that was worked on for 10 to 15 years. Several $1 billion put in, and they're still putting in money. And the Biden administration came in and just to knife Donald Trump in the back, shut it down, revoked all permits on day one by executive order, and got rid of it. Political BS. All of it.
Yeah, it's too much power for the president.
And now what? How are we going to... do you just... What? Trump comes into office, it's not turned back on. But do we just turn it back on and just go, okay, here goes?
Some stuff,
but by God, you
worse.
better get done with it, because there could be a Democrat next time. And if they do, even if it's done, you could use the ability to use it. They might shut it down.
They spent all their time trying to make sure it could never be revived.
Exactly.
And when you look at the damage that the Biden administration done, we have to remember.
But it's not only them.
Yeah.
All sides do it at varying levels.
Yeah, but it is slightly different in that
I know.
Biden administration.
They're worse.
Yeah. Well, the reason why they're worse is this: the Biden administration was run by Hillary Clinton and Obama.
I know.
And when you look at these guys are not affiliated with a Democrat party. Like, I don't even think the Democrat Party exists anymore, right? Because everybody in office now is an ex-Democrat.
I know.
Right? What happened, I believe, is that Obama I think he's a destroyer. I think he wants the U.S. dead. I think he's in league with the Chinese.
But why?
Well, for a couple of different reasons. He wants globalist power.
Yeah, but how's he
Globalist
going to
power.
get globalist power with Chinese?
Well, that's the topic of definitely a topic of
Another deep dive.
another deep dive. But the Clintons and the Obamas, they're the ones who accelerated. There's a book you got to read called Modernizing China's Military, which about 20, 25 years old. And the Chinese, like when they saw what the U.S. was doing in the Gulf War, how our missiles were like turning corners on city streets and zipping down to target like very specific targets, like the second floor of a building on the corner where somebody's office was, they freaked out.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't even launch a rocket successfully at all until Bill Clinton gave them the tech. And the hard drive went missing from Los Alamos, and it had all of the schematics of our aircraft carriers, and it wound up in Chinese hands. Mm-hmm. So when we think about the need for infrastructure, I mean, obviously in this context, we're talking about it in the terms of roads and railways and these kinds of things. But we can't even build a ship, for crying out loud.
I know.
We have a generation of drug-addicted kids that have no hope, that want socialism, that have no idea that their freedom hangs in the balance.
That think they're women if they're men, and vice versa.
Don't even know what. And by the way, they don't even know the definition, right? So it's much worse, because that's what I'm saying. What is the future like? And that's why, yes, I'm very positive focused. I think we're going to have a bright future. I think the argument isn't going to be won by left or right. I think it's going to be won by success. We may have some struggles to go through to get there, but I think
that's exactly what this person says. He says it might get worse before it gets better. Going to get worse before it gets better.
Well, I'm sure it's like some things are already getting better, and some things like Charlie Kirk getting shot, right, are getting worse. But I think it's going to win over. I think when I say it's going to win over, I mean success will win over a lot of the failures. States are taking control of their education. Education's going to improve. Those kinds of things. We already have another generation behind what I would call the lost generation. Again, right? Which is the age of the people that were born in the 90s. Most of them are what I call ODF, out there flapping, just just flapping in the breeze, drifting around like
That's
one
right.
of those little, what are those little white like blossom type things from the dandelion that are floating around?
Yeah.
They don't have skills. I call a lot of them like zero man, zero skills, zero intellect, zero things to offer, but they've got like this grand idea of a utopia that's handed to them via socialism.
Where's my Obama
But
phone?
those people are
Where's
not
my new home?
The people behind them, they have no illusions. The generation that's coming behind them, they know that it has to be created. So I'm hopeful there, and I'll leave you with that. I think that there's a bright future ahead, but I think it has to be created. I think it has to be on purpose, and I think we're going to have to like rally these troops. And I think we should be focusing on the younger people, getting them to believe in a bright future. And that's something all of us can do. We can be sitting there with our grandkids or our nieces and nephews or whatever and go, hey, let's talk about why the future's bright. Let's look at what skills you need to be there. Let's get them hyped up for that sort of thing.
Well, I shall make an effort.
Well,
Because I believe that politics is still, for a good long time, going to be the evil story that it is right now.
yeah.
I don't see that necessarily changing, and maybe that skews my other world views.
Well, I think you've got a good point.
But I've also seen that pendulum just when it goes this far to the right at this time. Trust me, it's going to go back to the left, and maybe further. Maybe it's on the up arc and not the down. You know what I mean? Or maybe it's stronger. We're still in the strong part, and it's not the metronome, that might slow down over time.
I think as long as the Trump administration doesn't do anything
foolish,
I think...
Hard to believe.
But I think one of the things that sticks out to me is that by being positive and talking about the future, we may be able to bypass the politics, is what I'm saying. We may be able to get people to move beyond their politics, and that's what I'm trying to get people to do anyway. So, all righty. Well, thank you for having me on the show.
Hey, man, I thank you. I didn't mean to take so much of your time.
No, it's been a pleasure, and I like to talk a lot, so.
Well, that's a good thing, because you did.
Well, thanks for having me.
And so did I, and I'm very glad to have you. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay, friends and neighbors, and there he goes. And I got a few things I'm gonna go nowhere near what I was gonna discuss before, because I still have only 15 minutes or so to go on the show, which is just fine. But I had one in particular that I really wanted to get to that I thought was rather comical. There's been all kinds of ruckus and hubbub. What's the hubbub, bub? The hubbub is that India sent 65 soldiers. Where? Where did they go? They went to the Zapad 2025. I was telling you a little bit about Zapad 2025 over the last few days, where Belarus and Russia are having joint exercises on the NATO border. Now, they do this every so often. I want to say every 4 years or whatever. I've talked about it a few times. And then there's counter events on the other side of the border in Poland, NATO countries. U.S. Military has NATO bases inside of Poland, and they kind of have corresponding war games, if you want to call them that. Well, the horror story of it all was that India joined Russia, sent a small detachment of people talking about joint defense and learning from each other, and their border countries, and have to do it. And people on the West going nuts over it. Oh my God, India's joining Russia. And this is a terrible thing. I can't believe it. Why would they do this? Right? And it just, let me get to the proper script on this after my rail stuff. Let's get to it. India sent 65 personnel, including a detachment from the Kumaon regiment, to the Russia-Belarus Zapad 2025 drills. Russia-Belarus hosting about 100,000 troops in total, right? So 65 of them are from India. The Western media reaction, the Australian, there's a newspaper over there. A couple of times it got picked up in the U.S. too. Very critical editorials and briefs that say this is very bad optics for the Quad. The Quad is Japan, U.S., India, and Australia. And the EU-India ties. It's a red line. They shouldn't be. They can't go into Russia. There's a red line appeared in London press, right? Russian says participation is normal in its multinational, multilateral training. And get this, U.S. and NATO officers were present too, as observers inside of Belarus, and almost 100 of them. So NATO and the U.S. sent officers over there too. So why, London, New York, and Sydney, why are we all complaining about the Indians? Because nobody wants to admit to the rest of the world, and I'm going to do it here on my show, that, oh, by the way, we send people to these things too. We know these are peaceful events, and they're just doing war training, and they're allowing us to observe what they're doing. Nonsense. The exercise's character is conventional and nuclear signaling. New systems were showcased. Nuclear capable aviation. I did want to get to what this nuclear thing is for Russia because it's a big deal. But I don't think I'm going to. I may save some of this for tomorrow night and get through the India thing and maybe a couple of other quick short stories and talk about that. But India is pissed. Once again, they're going, of course, the West will say, do as I say, not as I do, and will lecture India, will lecture India on what they need to do. And that's nonsense, and India is tired of it. So India says, listen, we have our own strategic autonomy. Participation strengthens our long-standing defensive ties with Russia. And the scale is merely symbolic, not a combat commitment. And it's a quiet message, something to Washington and Brussels that, tariffs and sanctions and pressure aren't going to dictate who we partner with. That was actually said in the Australian article. And there was an X post, and I don't have it available to pull up, but there was an X post that some Indian, and I forget who, was an important Indian leader of some sort, that governmental actor too, but it wasn't like Jai Shankar or Modi or anybody like that. It was somebody else who was connected to it, and it was a woman, but I can't remember who. And she said, once again, do as I say, not as I do. You don't even mention the fact that U.S. troops and NATO troops are also there. You just conveniently ignore that reality. And, they don't like it. They just don't like it. Matthew, when he was in here a few minutes ago, talking about getting rid of this continual, all you have are two parties, and you gotta pick one or the other. And worldwide, all you have is multilateral, multi-groups that believe in multipolarity and globalism, which is U.S. dominance. But the U.S., we can't come together to get anything done. It's shameful, in my humble opinion. It is shameful that we cannot get past it. We demonize people who are killed on both sides. You can't say anything nice about someone if they have an opposing view to you. Diplomacy is long dead, and the ability to get along with each other, unless you have the identical get-along views, is gone. I have no problem getting along with most people, and I don't give a crap what they believe. I don't care. I don't care if you believe that the moon's made of green cheese. You're right. You want to do that? Go ahead. But don't try to tell me that I must believe the moon is made of green cheese. It's not going to happen. I disbelieve that. It's actually yellow cheese, Swiss cheese. That's why there are holes in it sometimes. I don't understand that people don't get that. So it's these hating people because they lean a certain direction is I'm so tired of it. I can't stand it. Watching and I wasn't how do I want to put this? I wasn't obsessed by watching Charlie Kirk. I know who he was. I saw some of his stuff, but I didn't continually follow the man. But I saw some of his. If you didn't know who Charlie Kirk was, that's probably a pretty rare thing, and maybe that's a good thing. You don't need to know who these people are, maybe, okay? But even if you do, you don't have to hate him. Why are we hating people because of different opinions? Why? And maybe it's a college thing. You're supposed to go to college and argue about each other. And, I don't know. You're supposed to argue about Republican versus Democrat and keep it that way. And it's never going to go away. I have no idea. But I'm so over it already. And how do we continue to get over it? I don't know. But India's going, look, we're going to do what we think is best for us, and we don't understand why it's a problem for you. That's a very fair comment. Russia welcomes India's presence as proof that the drills are multinational. Guess who else showed up? Bangladesh, Iran. Western red line. Oh, it's a red line, from Australia. You can't do that. You're going to tell India what they can and can't do, right, Australia? Broader deterrence, Zapad, which means West, pairs the strategic messaging. They're Reshnik, and this is the other one, Buravestnik, and I forget what that means. I'll have to look it up. But I had a Kedmi segment. I'll go into it tomorrow on Buravestnik and how big a deal this is. This is a big deal, and it is part of the show, but I won't get to it till tomorrow. Now I'm way ahead for tomorrow. How about that? The EU and NATO are, that's a problem for the Quad. What about the optics? India's gone, and they're gonna be in the country on the side of Russia. They're gonna be in Belarus. Nonsense. It's disturbing, said the UK editorial, and said it undermines India's democratic bloc credibility. Yes, undermining their credibility. And the EU's dilemma is that Brussels wants trade with India, but bristles at their Moscow ties and oil purchases. And they say the timing is downright awkward. Here you are, you're supposed to be getting, bone-crushing sanctions from Lindsey Graham at 500%, 100% from Trump. And here you are poking the Uncle Sam by showing up at a Russian military exercise. Thanks a lot, India. Good call. Actually, I don't really give a crap. I think just like Jaishankar, just like India says, you know what? We'll worry about our own defensive posture and who we choose to be allies. And by the way, who we trade with. And what do you care? That's the statement. And and we're not going to care what you think anymore. That's the most important, right? So the security readouts say the people are monitoring to prevent threats. Air defense posture on the eastern flank, NATO, is reinforced. Some analysis blogs say this is routine NATO risk management, and I think it is routine. So you got people massing on the border. They used to do it all the time. And when I was in the military, and we would do something called Reforger, a huge group of soldiers annually or semi-annually. It could have been biannually, I don't remember. But they would send them over to Germany to get all prepared. And, of course, the Russians would build up on the other, or the Soviet Union would build up on the other side of the border. That's how it goes. And it's nothing out of the ordinary, okay? Regardless of what von der Leyen and Kaja Kallas and what's his name from Poland want you to think. It's nonsense. These are just standard drills and standard appearances. The EU-UK editorials aside, this is really not a big deal. And NATO's security framing say, it's just a medium to high risk. It's about those drones and what they're doing. I don't think so. Russian strategic messaging says, no, we're just testing our nuclear adjacent systems that we're trying to distribute all over Belarus. What's the big deal? And India says, we're autonomous. Quit telling us what to do. That's a, pretty big deal. It's India's presence is normal great power balancing. It's NATO's already de facto in the fight with Ukraine anyway. What's the big deal? And there's plenty to go on. Internal Ukraine trajectory. This is what Arestovich was saying. That this is a bigger deal than it used to be. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up right there for tonight because I don't have enough time to go any further, although I have quite a few more topics, and we'll just push them on to tomorrow night and come back to them. My name is Samuel Trapp. This is Damn Radio, and this is International Flavor on Damn Radio. You can listen to Damn Radio, the great shows we have on the very last of the Wednesday long play, and a very good day for us, and I'm very glad you joined us. You can follow me on my internationalflavor.com website, and I hope that you do. Every night here from Sunday through Thursday, 9 p.m. to 10:30. Have a good night.